So you have a HomePod update list on here. Is that just the HomePod got an update, or do you have an update about your HomePod specifically?
No, it was just the HomePod got an update. We never talked about it. I don't think we talked about it at all, really. Maybe after WWDC.
Right.
When they announced it was getting updates. And then, like, there wasn't a beta season for it, really, because it's not in the public. And then it just kind of, many weeks after all the other public versions of iOS 13 came out, then the HomePod got one, and then it got pulled, and then it came back, and we never talked about that crazy part of history.
I was really excited about it, but it's miserable.
It's pretty lackluster. What are your complaints?
Yeah. So the thing I was most excited about is also my main complaint, and that is the multiple account support. Before Audio OS, whatever they present it forward-facing as, the latest update to the HomePod, I had most of my HomePods in the house, just personal requests turned off, and the only one that allowed personal requests was the one in my office. With this update, I turned it on, and I set up the accounts for me and my girlfriend, and now I'd say 90% of the time, if I make a request of Siri on the HomePod, the first thing she says is, "I don't know who this is."
Oh, right. And
so,
looking at reports from the subreddit, you're not an edge case. It seems to be basically what everyone is experiencing.
Right. Yeah, it seems like their voice recognition is not nearly on the par of someone like Google, because I know my Google Nest Hub is very good at recognizing at least when something is or is not me. So,
I'm in a different boat. I found out that Australian English isn't a supported language for multiple accounts. So after being excited for 4 months about getting this, of finally having the Wiggles not part of my listening history, the update was announced. And actually, that's one thing about the update. It was nothing really obvious, like of how to configure the second account on the HomePod. I had to look up like a guide on how to do it. That was a bit weird. Anyway, all the parts that should be there for me to turn it on are still not there after everything's updated to latest version of iOS 13, and HomePod's up to date for sure. And it's just not there. And it seems it's fairly limited to which languages are supported.
All you Australian people sound the same. Although you and your wife would be very distinct for the HomePod to be able to tell apart.
We are very distinct, yes. Yeah. But it sounds like I'm not missing out on much, so whatever. The other thing about the HomePod update was that they released it, and then what happened was people's HomePods were getting like frozen or something like that, or they weren't completing the update. And then the next logical course of action for a lot of people was to reset the HomePod to factory defaults, and that would brick your HomePod.
Yeah, that's right.
It just works, in quotes.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to hold off on that update until after I saw those headlines. But if I had been home at the time that the update dropped, I would have probably been one of those people with 3 bricked HomePods.
Would you have done it on 2 after having the experience on 1?
Well, my experience with multiple HomePods in the app is there's an update all button when you get a software update.
Ah, okay.
So I think you can do it individually, but I would have just hit the update all button. So
I find just the UI for managing the HomePod just ridiculous in the Home app there. It needs to be somewhere else. Like, it should be in settings or, I don't know, airport utility, Bluetooth, I don't know, just not in the Home app. Like, some settings are when you, like, long press on the HomePod icon. Some things are under the Home button up the top left. Like, that doesn't even look like a menu. And yeah, it's got all these settings underneath it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like most of the way the Home app is laid out for any accessory, so it's very tedious to get anything done in there.
Sure is. Overall, though, I'm still very happy with HomePod.
Yeah, I still love my HomePods, but it didn't add any of the utility I thought it was going to this year.
No. What else was on the agenda?
Oh, boy. Man, I don't even remember. It's been so long since they announced it now. Let's see.
I'm racking my brain. I can't think of a single other feature.
Mm-hmm. I know that was the one I cared about was multiple users. Handing off from your phone to your HomePod.
Handoff, right. I've been meaning to try that. Haven't got around to it. I wasn't really waiting for it either.
It works okay. I've used it a couple times. Being able to add the HomePod to like your automation scenes, so you can have it start playing a specific song if you trigger a scene or something.
Ah, cool. That's something I tried back in iOS 12 and wasn't able to.
Right. There's like ambient noise options built in now for like rain or
that's
white
right.
noise.
Yep.
Yeah. And then there's sleep timers, so it'll turn off after a set amount of time.
Okay. Yeah, the good old ambient noise, it's quite good. I was addicted to it for about 48 hours and then haven't looked at it since. But yeah, all the ambient sort of noises, that stereotypical ones that I could think of in a couple of hours, it was able to play. Storms, forests, birds, all the usual stuff.
Yep. Trina can't sleep without white noise, so we've actually been using that quite a bit at the HomePod in our bedroom.
How do you sleep with white noise?
Just from being with someone for 6 years, you get used to it. I was definitely it has to be completely quiet sleeper before I met her, but before it was white noise on the HomePod, it was like a box fan in the bedroom. So the white noise is at least an upgrade over having a box fan running all night.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you don't get that. Do you get all dried out from having a fan run over you all night?
Now that's winter, I definitely do, and the air's a little drier.
Yeah.
So, but that's my problem is I can't sleep without a ceiling fan on because I get way too hot.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And she hates it. So I guess it evens out.
I go to sleep listening to podcasts.
I still have yet to find a really comfortable pair of headphones to lay in bed with. I think if I found that, I would have other sounds going while I sleep.
Standard AirPods are just perfect. Just put one in one ear. I sleep on my side. And when I roll over, I just take that same AirPod and turn it upside down and stick it in the other ear.
You turn it upside down?
Well, that way you get around the whole, put one AirPod back in its case, pull the other one out. It's, not paired. And then suddenly the iOS device is, blasting the podcast through the room at 11 p.m., that sort of thing.
Right.
Maybe if I had a newer generation of AirPods that paired a bit better, I wouldn't worry about it. But just with the original, the OG AirPods, just using one of them and swapping is not a good experience. So I just turn one of them upside down, and then it kind of goes in my ear, in the same ear. No, in the opposite ear, rather.
I didn't realize that was even an option.
Someone on Twitter suggested it once, and it changed my life for the better.
I guess I'll have to give it a shot, because that's my main concern is I roll over too much, and it gets really uncomfortable if you try to lay on an AirPod. So.
Oh, yeah, no, I cannot lay on an AirPod. I can't lie on any headphone.
Right. So I know, Bose has some in-ear headphones that are supposed to be flush with the outside of your ear, so you can lay on them when you sleep.
It's not going to work. Trust me.
Well, they got pretty okay reviews until Bose recalled all of them for battery issues.
Oh no!
But also they didn't have any Bluetooth capability. They could only play white noise.
What?
So, it was a very niche market.
Yeah, sure sounds like it.
So I don't know how closely you watched the Anchor app, but it's prompting us to do a trailer for the show. I thought that'd be kind of interesting to go back through our episodes and pull out some interesting clips maybe for a trailer. Mm-hmm. And I was in the process of thinking, well, maybe I'll just re-listen to all our shows and mark down some of the best moments. And I replayed the first episode, And in that episode, you made a prediction that ended up coming true this year.
Really? Wow.
In the very first episode.
I'm very excited to hear this.
So in that episode, you said that you believed Apple was working on a framework to allow iOS apps to be easily ported to Mac. And you said, I believe the same time that this framework will be released, we'll see Apple split iTunes into music, podcasts, and whatever the third one, TV. You said you think there'd be a TV app as well.
Wow. Okay. Well, so we're talking about January, February 2017?
2018.
2018. Oh, okay. Still.
Still well before Catalyst was announced. And then, of course, or Marzipan, I guess.
Wow. Okay.
So
I completely forgotten about that. I mean, I can't even remember the last show, really, so it's no surprise I've forgotten about it. But, cool. So, I mean, either one by themselves isn't too bad, but I predicted them both and at the same time. I'm quite proud of myself. Nice.
And even in that very first episode, I was saying how Apple needs to make an ARM Mac. So I've been going on about that.
At least you're consistent.
Doing this show,
if anything, consistent.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. All right. I might try to do the same. Listen to some old episodes and come up with some clips. I mean, that one's got to be in there. That prediction. I might send it to Craig or someone and say, "You need me on the team."
That's right. You're very forward thinking.
Yes, forward thinking analyst. I'll title myself.
I'm sure they were already
analyst.
well in development at that point. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
You've got your finger right on it, the pulse of Apple's development.
Yeah, I've got sources throughout the company, as we all know.
That's why they call you the Australian Guy.
Really? What is Guillermo in English? You know how like foreign names have like the English counterpart? Like Giovanni might be John. What is Guillermo? Is that John as well? John Rambo?
You know, I'm not sure that I've ever actually heard the English air quotes version of Guillermo. Maybe. It's really just gonna be whatever sounds the closest.
Not necessarily. Here we go. William. Guillermo is the Portuguese equivalent of William in English. William Rambo would be my name. Anyway, well off track. Actually, we could talk about Guillermo. I can't remember if that's in the show notes or not, but yeah, it is. Oh, you did? All right, we can talk about it later. Another thing you put into the pre-show notes, since we're half an hour in, is this story about Steve Jobs and the case of the stolen laptop. So
did you end up listening to that podcast I linked?
I listened to the entire thing. It was very entertaining.
It was very good.
Did you see the update on the 9 to 5 Mac article, though?
It's very brief, and I'm very confused about it.
All right.
Yeah,
well, start us from the start.
I guess from the start. Okay. So the Eavesdrop podcast, which is a podcast I hadn't heard of up until this point, but had Andy Miller on as a guest, who was he started a company called Quattro Wireless, which Apple ended up buying for their technology to develop the iAd platform. And so Andy Miller came on to Apple as the head of iAds. And he has a handful of stories in this podcast that ring true to things we've heard about Steve Jobs in the past. Apparently he is a very aggressive negotiator. At least when he came in to talk to Steve Jobs, he would do things like ask a question and then have a prolonged silence to see if he would if he'd ramble on in that silence, or if he'd sit quietly and calmly, and that's how he could tell if you were a bozo, apparently. And then apparently at the end of this acquisition meeting, he ended up offering $50 million less than Apple had already agreed to pay for their company. And when Andy kind of accused him of retrading and saying, like, we already had a deal, Steve said, well, you can either take this or iOS won't support your framework or whatever they had developed at that point.
Yeah, there's hard negotiating and there's unethical negotiating, and if that story is to be believed, I think it's crossing the line.
Yeah, that's definitely not okay. But I guess when you're presented with $275 million, it's like, what's another $50 million when you're already at 275? So he ended up settling for 275 instead of the 325 that they had agreed on, or at least he had agreed on with other Apple executives before going into this meeting. He also had a couple stories about how Steve would ask you very personal questions and then save that information for, like, to hold against you years later. Like you said, Steve asked about his dad once, and apparently his dad was an immigrant. And then at some point when Andy was maybe having a less than productive day or something wasn't working out, Steve would say, Would your dad really be proud of the fact that he had to, like, struggle to get into this country just for you to put this crap out or something to that effect?
Totally brutal.
And, yeah, just really know how to put someone down. But the story that Andy told on this podcast that was most interesting was that apparently in the early stages of iAds, when he was putting together some demo ads, sort of look like in the platform, Steve was less than impressed with how the ads were put together and the companies he was using for the demo ads, and was basically threatening to just fire Andy because he's so useless. And basically he had him sit down in his office. He had Andy sit down in his office with him and design some ads, and apparently he still wasn't happy with his work and ended up berating Andy and kicked him out and sent him to I wish I remember this designer's name, but he sent him to another designer in the company and basically kicked him out of his office, yelling at him, and Andy grabbed all his stuff and rushed out. And unbeknownst to him, in the rushing out of Steve's office, he grabbed Steve's laptop instead of his own. And then was so frantic to try to work with this other developer to get good looking ads put together that he completely ignored his phone for the next half hour. And apparently Steve had been, like, trying to get his laptop back and ended up sending, like, police to find him and take the laptop from him. And when it's all said and done, Andy says that he gave the laptop back, saw that he had also taken Steve's mouse, and decided that he was going to keep that mouse because he assumed he was about to get fired. But managed to stay on the team somehow. So,
well, it sounded like an honest mistake, the way he told it. And
oh, it definitely does. But now there's an update at the top of this 9 to 5 Mac article saying that we've heard from reputable source that the laptop theft part of the story is highly unlikely to be true, or at least represents a heavily embellished version.
What motivation would he have for making up a story like that? Except to make the news. The heavily embellished part, the only thing I can think of is that maybe he accidentally took Steve Jobs' mouse, but not the laptop or something like that. But, I mean, this is
right.
Ancient history. Well, I guess not too ancient. It's probably, a decade old at this point?
Yeah, it'd have to be at least a decade old. That's almost exactly right.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, okay. Almost exactly a decade. I don't know what to make of the update. Like, what reputable source would have have knowledge of this story anyway? It doesn't sound like too many people would have been in on it. I mean, it involves Steve, Andy, and a few police officers. I mean, unless it's calling into account Andy's trustworthiness as a source. of information besides that.
Right, and I don't know anything about Andy Miller besides what I learned in this podcast, so I guess, I don't have any say one way or the other if he's a trustworthy person. But the story sounded honest enough, and maybe it's based on true events, and that's what made it seem so real. But
well, hopefully more information comes out. There is some evidence, at least, that Andy still does have the mouse somewhere. Maybe in a glass case somewhere on a mantelpiece.
Either way, this podcast is really good listen. The Eavesdrop podcast, and this is specifically episode 48. Worth a listen for anyone who likes stories about Steve Jobs. I'm always interested when a new one comes out.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's a good listen, a great listen.
And I really miss iAds. I had kind of forgotten about them.
Why do you miss ads of any sort?
Well, in an ideal world, there'd be no ads. But there are ads, and I wish more of them were iAds.
Because they were so unobtrusive, or what?
Yeah, at least early on, they're very specifically supposed to be well-designed, and they weren't supposed to yank you out of the app. They were just supposed to, which a lot of ads have gotten better about that. But things like hiding the X button in an ad is very common and would not fly in an iAd.
Putting under a timer.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But the big thing, and from the flip side, as a developer, to be able to just drop a box and say, I want an ad here, and for Apple to handle the rest, that was really nice.
Yeah.
And that's still more or less possible with I think Google's offerings and stuff now. But there's the extra steps of having to include all that in your packages and having that all native, where just say, put an ad here and Apple does the rest and then pays you for it, is really cool.
I'm not even sure I use that many apps that even have ads in them. The only one I can think of off the top of my head is Overcast, and that just has native ads that Overcast has come up with for podcasts, which is fine in my books.
Yeah. I have, I think, maybe a single app that has ads in it that I use. It's called Puzzle Page, and it's just a book of daily Sudoku and crossword and other puzzles. And there's a subscription option, or you can just watch ads between puzzles. And so I like the app well enough to sit through the ads, but not well enough to pay the subscription fee.
Actually, I just thought of another one. Asphalt 9, and I think did the same thing. After you've done a race, you can often double your prize money or whatever by watching an ad, but you also have the option not to double it, and you can just skip the ad, which is what I normally do.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm really after that prize money, that fake money. Anyway. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
There's a lot to talk about. I think we'll just have to power through the topics today.
Yep.
And the first one's actually a massive topic because since we talked, the MacBook Pro 16-inch was announced, right? That was announced after the last time we talked. Yeah.
Yes. And
the rumors were true.
I think they were true in the places that counted and false in the best ways. I know up until the 16-inch MacBook Pro launched, people were expecting it to start at $3,000, and to see it start at the same price as the 15-inch is really exciting.
And on top of that, it has some improved specs, or at least lower priced upgrades compared to what you would have on the 15-inch, such as I think, is it the base storage is increased, and then the the same priced upgrades are now double what you'd get from the 15.
Yep. Yeah, so we're starting at 512 gigabyte now, which is a more reasonable starting storage price for a $2,400 laptop.
Yeah, that's earning the Pro name on this model for sure.
And they've finally ditched the butterfly keyboard.
It's gone.
And in
listeners
favor
to the show will know how much I fell out of love with that keyboard after my numerous trips to the Apple store and eventually selling of my MacBook Pro.
And I was excited to hear that they replaced it with not the exact same keyboard they had in the older laptops, but something more similar to the keyboards they're shipping with the iMacs now, which I really like.
The Magic Keyboard 2? Either the Magic Keyboard or the Magic Mouse doesn't have a number after it.
The Magic Keyboard, it doesn't have a number after it.
Yeah, the same key. That's an excellent keyboard.
Yeah.
I mean, it already sold me that it charges with lightning instead of having AA batteries in it. That's already a very big win. But yeah, right. The travel of the keys, the feeling of the keys, the spacing, everything about that keyboard is really good. And apparently the new MacBook Pro's keyboard is so similar, you can actually swap keycaps off the Magic Keyboard onto the new MacBook Pro, and they will click right in, although you probably won't be able to close the lid.
Ooh, so you could have a white keyboard?
You could. Yeah, you could go crazy. You could have like a Panda keyboard in a laptop that doesn't really close anymore.
That's pretty cool. I remember people used to do that with like the pre-Retina Macs. Mm-hmm. Like when they made the black and white MacBooks, and people would switch the keyboards back and forth between those to make like a Panda look.
Missed out on that craze.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My first Mac that I bought for myself was the 1 year that they made the base MacBook out of aluminum unibody before they basically rebranded it as a 13-inch MacBook Pro.
Okay.
So that would have been, that was 2008.
What Mac was that? So they made the MacBook, just the normal MacBook, out of unibody.
Right, for 1 year in 2008. Back when the MacBook Pro was only 15 and 17 inches. Mm-hmm. And then you could get the MacBook as a unibody. And then the next year, they rebranded that as the 13-inch MacBook Pro, and they made the plastic unibody Mac in 2009.
Huh, okay. Well, I missed that completely. Doesn't sound familiar at all. So, was that around the era of like the black and the white MacBooks, or is this just after that?
That would have been, either just after or right at the same time, because you could still get a plastic MacBook as well. You didn't have to get the metal one.
Okay.
But it was the perfect option for a kid version of me who wanted to look like he had a MacBook Pro but couldn't afford a MacBook Pro. So,
back on the keyboard though, a few other notable improvements. Many of which were spotted in like the little glyphs and placeholder images and all those sorts of things that were spelunked out of different versions of Mac OS.
Right.
Oh, the arrow T has returned. So you no longer have double height left and right keys.
See, this never bothered me.
Oh man, it bothered the hell out of me.
Really?
Yeah. I could never get used to them. Found them awful. Was forever hitting the wrong ones by accident.
I completely see why Apple did it, because just switching back and forth between the 13-inch and 16-inch on their website, like the design-wise, in terms of appearance, the keyboard looks much nicer without the random two little metal gaps on one side.
Yeah,
it looks more symmetrical, at least.
Exactly. There was 100% a design decision to make those left and right keys double height for the looks of it. But usability-wise, it annoyed a lot of people, myself included. My other complaint about the keyboard, besides how unreliable it was the escape key, because that period of time when I had a MacBook Pro with the touch bar, I quickly realized that the escape key was actually one of the resting points for my fingers when I was just resting them on the keyboard. And being a touch bar, it meant I couldn't rest my fingers there anymore because it would action the escape key, of course. So that's turned back into a physical escape key.
That's a very common complaint I've heard, but I cannot picture how you would rest your hand on a computer where your finger would land on an escape key. Were you like coming in from the side and resting your hand like vertically along the keyboard? I don't even see how that would happen.
I'm just practicing it now on a keyboard to see. All right, so say your fingers are on the home row, on the correct fingers. If I now just stretch my hands out, my middle finger reaches the escape key. So I'm not moving my wrists at all. I'm just splaying my fingers at full length, and my middle finger is perfectly on the escape key.
Interesting. I've never rested my hands just flat on a keyboard before.
Well, you can't have them cramped up on the home row all the time. I mean, you have to lay them flat every now and then, just for.
I guess I move my hand away from the computer if I'm not typing. I don't leave it on the keyboard like that.
I'm always ready to type.
Fair enough.
You never know when you might be called upon.
All right.
So the gaps between the keys have slightly increased. Key travel has, I think, doubled as the report.
I think that's what I heard as well.
Yeah, from about 0.5 mil to a full mil. The bottom row, like the spacebar row, has returned to a normal height instead of being slightly compressed. It's a huge change from what was there before, and I guess a return to sanity.
Yeah. And while they haven't jumped to the newest gen of processors, the enhanced thermals on the 16-inch still make it perform, I think, like 40% better than the 15-inch. So not that the 15-inch was throttled, at least with the 2019 design, but it's less constrained now, at least thermally.
Yeah, that was a huge complaint of previous models. Mm-hmm. Especially the high-end processors generate a lot of heat and very quickly became constrained. And
Apple's has upgraded the graphics to the Radeon Pro, 5300M and 5500M, which is a big step up over the Vega 20 graphics. So that's a noticeable improvement in graphics performance as well.
So now you're no longer limited to 1080 by 786 for games. You can now bump up to 1280 by 768 or whatever the correct widescreen resolution is. 16 by 10, I don't know.
So
I'm kidding. They probably could play games at a reasonable clip.
A couple surprising areas that Apple worked on improving is the microphones and the speakers on these. MacBook Pros have always been kind of known to have some of the best speakers in laptops, and apparently these have twice as many in an effort to reduce rattle in the chassis when the volume's turned up. And then also the microphones, they've been kind of branding as studio quality, like almost to the point where you could have a podcast just off of the microphones in the laptop itself. And I've seen a couple YouTube videos of people using it, and it's surprisingly good.
So I don't think the latest, but the last week's Accidental Tech podcast, Marco inserted a clip of him talking through the studio microphone, the inbuilt microphone in the MacBook Pro. And while it didn't sound anything like his, like $1,000 setup, it was listenable. And I think if someone recorded a podcast with it, I don't think I'd be complaining. They're really good.
Yeah. I was very surprised by that. And I mean, not that this is the normal way you'd hold it, but if you were to hold the microphones a little closer to your mouth even, it's surprising the amount of ambient noise they're able to cancel out.
Back on the speakers for a sec, the last generation of MacBook Pro already had speakers that, when I first listened to it, I was blown away by how good they sounded. And these ones are supposedly blowing you away if you came from that model. So I can't imagine how good they sound. The speakers in Apple products in the recent years have just been crazy good. I mean, like the iPad Pros just have amazing speakers. And
I wonder how much of this is coming over from their Beats acquisition. If they got some good audio engineers from that, or if it's completely unrelated.
Well, isn't the guy in charge of speakers like the what's the acronym? DHX, DLX, DBX? What's that noise that goes bar at the...
THX.
THX, thank you. At the wrong start. No wonder I couldn't get it. The THX guy is like in charge of audio at Apple at the moment, and I think he joined like 5 years ago, in charge of HomePod audio. And
That's right.
I think his hiring is bearing fruits left, right, and center.
Yeah.
One thing that some people mentioned is that 16-inch sounds a lot bigger compared to 15-inch, but it's actually 15.4 to 16-inch, so it's not actually a huge increase in screen size, really.
Right. Yeah.
It's handy
with such a small screen size increase, I kind of expected this to come in the same footprint, but this new MacBook Pro actually increases, I think, in pretty much every dimension. So,
yeah, I wonder why they did it like that then. Is it just so it was easier to distinguish? Or maybe they had to make it bigger because you've got an extra millimeter, half a millimeter between every key now? I don't know.
Well, they significantly increased the size of the battery. So, for whatever reason it was, I'm glad they did it. So,
any other improvements worth noting before we talk about what was missed?
Sure. Yeah, I think that about hits it. Do you have something big in your mind that was left out?
Yes. Well, not big, but something that seems to have become unimprovable, according to Apple recently, is front-facing camera quality. In fact, I mean,
right.
Front-facing, there's only one camera in it, but it's still a piece of junk.
Yep, still 720p.
Why are they sticking with 720p? It looks terrible. People use these webcams all the time. Web conferencing, FaceTiming, I don't know, photo booth.
Is that still a thing?
It's still a thing.
Oh, I do still have photo booth on my Mac. Man.
It's there by default.
In my mind, it has to be just the screen thickness, right? There can't be any other reason they wouldn't have upgraded it by now.
Yeah, but even 720 to 1080, surely there's an equivalent camera with equivalent thickness. There's got to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2019.
If they're gonna take the time to fit a new camera in there, though, I would want them to go all out and put Face ID in there.
Yeah, I think that's possibly the reason that there was no upgrade this year, is because next year's one's going to have Face ID.
And do you think they're going to have to do that at the cost of thickness to this display, or
I'm not sure. I can't remember from like iPhone teardowns how thick that whole component is.
If they're going to put Face ID in, this is my prediction, they're not going to need Touch ID anymore. So they're going to put the Face ID sensor up there in the touch bar, and you have to lean over your MacBook Pro to unlock it.
That sounds awful. All right, we'll see if that prediction comes through.
Man. But yeah,
right,
I think a Mac is one of the best places Face ID could go.
Oh, yeah, 100%, because you're always looking at it the correct way, and there's no upside down.
Right. Yeah.
Another thing that was missed, kind of slightly tangential, is the 13-inch didn't get an update. So 13-inch is still using the butterfly mechanism keyboard, piece of junk that it is.
That has to be coming.
It's got to be coming, yeah. It has to be coming.
Yeah.
There's no way it's not coming. I'd be surprised if it received a bigger screen size, though, just because, I mean, we haven't seen or heard rumors about like a 14-inch panel coming, so I imagine it's just going to be a minor sort of keyboard and maybe thermal update.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
I think everyone will be fine with that, just to get rid of that keyboard.
I actually really like the 13-inch size, so I wouldn't necessarily want them to step that up anyway.
Yeah, me too. Nice compact footprint, still powerful, screen is still big enough. Price.
It's a good...
Can't look past the cheaper price.
That's right. Yeah, it's kind of a perfect middle ground in terms of performance and portability, and then, yeah, the price is easier to swallow. So...
So maybe next year. Maybe next year's Mac will get me back on the Mac. Back to the Mac.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure we'll see that soon.
So the next article was a tweet by Mark Gurman. Wonder if WWDC branding is done. Apple Developer Conference, ? Worldwide Developer Conference is an outdated name. They no longer need to flaunt they have developers globally, and most people don't know what WWDC means. But it'll certainly be an end of an era for branding, because that's been around for a little while, for sure. But part of what prompted this, I think, is that the WWDC app was just renamed to Apple Developer or Developer, something like that.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it could be symbolic of a branding strategy change, but I think it's more just due to the fact that this app is useful outside of WWDC. Like, you can use it year round as an educational resource if you're working on development. So I could see where they'd want to make people aware of that, whether or not the WWDC brand is changing.
So you don't think they're going to rename the conference?
Oh, I don't know.
Apple Developer Conference? It's very corporate and bland, isn't it?
I mean, WWDC has been around for what, 20 years? It's been called that, at least. So that's like saying we need to rename the iMac because the name is outdated.
Yeah.
And they really leaned into the whole dub thing this year. It seemed weird for them to go all out with that this year and then switch the name up. But
maybe it was a farewell type thing.
Maybe. I like WWDC a lot. I really hope they don't change it. Although I could see people calling it ADC.
It doesn't have... maybe just because of... because it hasn't been used yet, but ADC just sounds like it could be anything. Sounds like that old image viewer on Windows, ACDC. ACDSEE. Anyway, WWDC, certainly more iconic.
I agree. Yeah, it's a very iconic name.
But maybe ADC is iconic in 20 years as well. I don't know.
I mean, it would fit their modern branding more if it was called the Apple Developer Conference, I guess. But
the modern lack of personality.
Just how they put Apple in front of everything.
Yeah, Apple Music, Apple TV, Apple Developer Conference, Apple Pay, blah blah blah.
Yeah, if you're gonna put something in front of a product name, you might as well put I, since you've already been doing it. I don't know why they would ditch the convention of putting I in front of everything just to find something else to stick in front of all their product names.
IDC, the I Developer Conference.
There you go.
I don't know. It sounds like some sort of birth control thing.
I mean, I guess I guess the benefit of using Apple is that people can't rip you off. You know, there's no other companies putting I mean, there was tons of other companies putting I in front of their product names, but no one else can put Apple in front of their products except Apple.
True.
So probably partially motivation, at least.
Well, I'm sure we'll find out in June next year.
Yeah. So, but my money's on it staying the same.
All right. I'll choose the contrary position just to be contrary.
Okay.
Apple could bundle news, TV, and music into one subscription as soon as 2020 is the article from The Verge, but the source came from Bloomberg. So Bloomberg cites people familiar with the matter for its prediction. They've got to be looking at bundles. That'd be insane not to. I don't think Apple News is really going anywhere, so as in I don't think it has a strong future outside of a bundle, is what I meant to say.
Right. So I think for that reason alone, just to carry news, they need to start bundling stuff.
Right. And they've kind of already started bundling. Like, if you buy an iOS device, they'll bundle a year of Apple TV with it.
Right. And as someone who is just overburdened with subscriptions from Apple at this point, I I would love to see a bundle between multiple iCloud storage plans, Apple Care on at least 5 devices, Apple Arcade, Apple Music, any app subscriptions I have. It seems like almost every other day I'm getting a notification from my Apple Card that's like, you've been billed for Apple services. I'm like, well, which one is this?
Exactly. So I've got PayPal set up as my Apple billing system, and every other day I'm getting an email from PayPal saying that, Apple's billed me for X or Y or Z.
Right. So it'd be nice to have that as just one monthly bill. I know it's all included. And then if I get another rogue payment, I can say like, oh, a kid just bought a movie on iTunes or something and know what's going on.
Yeah, so that it's kind of like payment fatigue at the moment because there are so many of them coming in.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've gotten to the point where I'm ignoring most of those messages because I get so many, where I should probably really be paying a closer eye on what those charges are.
I'm normally just swiping right to mark the emails as read and not even checking what they are, which is probably not a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, adding in any app subscriptions as well, because they kind of come through the same way. And it is almost every other day.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
it's got to be tricky to bundle different market services though. Like the news market and the music market are completely different, or the industry, and then add in TV, games, and their own little iCloud or whatever they're doing. That's man. Imagine the negotiations to make that happen.
Oh, I see. I was thinking you were coming at this from a point of how are you going to market that to someone, but.
Yeah, marketing could be tricky.
I mean, I don't know if the overlap between people who want Apple Music and people who are going to read Apple News are that big, but me as someone who would willingly subscribe to everything Apple offers me, if they bundled it right, yeah, assuming that the bundle would be associated with some kind of discount or something, I can't imagine what the negotiations on that would look like.
Well, it has to be. Otherwise, there's no much point in having it, except to simplify billing.
Yeah. I mean, I'd do it just to unify my billing, yeah.
You might be an outlier there. I'd also like to see, devices be included in the bundle. Like, what if you paid $40 a month and you got an iPhone and Apple Music, Apple TV, your iCloud storage?
Oh, I see. That'd be cool. I mean, you kind of get that already if you're in the iPhone upgrade program, and you get a new iPhone this year, so you're paying monthly for your iPhone, and you get a year of Apple TV included with that. But if that was more of a long-term and maybe a bigger bundle, that'd be cool.
Speaking of Apple TV, a good friend of mine bought a new iPhone during the week, and he said, why don't you come and sign in to be the first person to set it up so you can get a year of Apple TV, because I'm not going to use it. So I went over and set up the iPhone with my account, got the free year of Apple TV, and then promptly erased the phone.
That was very nice of him. So now you get to still watch the morning show.
Yeah, I wasn't going to have any problem watching it, but it's a bit simpler now. Have you kept up with it? I think this is our only Apple TV topic, so we may as well talk about it.
I have not seen the latest episode of that or see.
No, me either. It only came out yesterday as we're recording.
Right. A surprising show that Trina especially has gotten interested in. I've kind of watched just because I'm in the same room as her a lot of the time. She really has gotten into Dickinson.
I've been hearing good things. Yeah, it's high on my list to check out.
It's a show I probably wouldn't watch on my own, but I do enjoy it when she has it on. It's a very interesting take on the life of Emily Dickinson.
Okay. I know next to nothing about Emily Dickinson, so I'm sure.
Right, I didn't know anything about her either going in.
Yep.
It seems like they take a poem that she wrote, and then each episode they have like an event in her life that inspired her to write that poem, basically. And I think it has to be like all, at least partially fictional. Maybe it's like true that, her family did these things, but It's very interesting because it takes place. I mean, I don't know when Emily Dickinson lived, 150 years ago or something. At the early stages of it was pre-Civil War U.S. and
she's American. Okay,
yeah,
that's news to me.
Pre-Civil
to start with.
Oh, okay. But they have like characters like talking in modern slang.
Okay.
So it's really interesting contrast, and it's entertaining. So I'd recommend it.
All right, I'll be sure to watch it.
But other than that, I was never inspired to go back to For All Mankind. I haven't gotten past the first episode still.
I think I have gotten over my disappointment. So my expectation was for All Mankind is that it was a sci-fi show, and it's not.
Okay.
It's
right.
Like most shows involving space and stuff might be like a sci-fi based show with drama in it, but For All Mankind is completely the other way around. It's a drama with sprinkles of sci-fi, I guess, if you could even call it that. So the first episode was overwhelmingly disappointing. But I think, as I said in a couple of shows already, the fact that it's kind of directed by the Battlestar Galactica guy meant I was willing to persist, and I think I watched 3 episodes now, and I don't know, it still hasn't grabbed me, but I'm still willing to persist. So normally a show, no matter how lackluster it is, will grab you because after you've watched a ton of it, you kind of invested in the story.
Kind of invested,
and you can't get out of it. So, yeah. Be prepared for more reports of how unthrilled I am over the next few months, I guess.
I just don't think I have the mental capacity to handle any more shows right now. I'm not a big TV watcher, so having The Morning Show and C being 2 shows that I actually am enjoying quite a bit, going at the same time is already kind of like hard to juggle for me to keep up with. So,
on that topic, it does make it difficult that they're being released on a week-by-week basis for the most part. So you are watching like The Morning Show and C and XYZ concurrently, instead of watching like all of The Morning Show, all of the C. It's kind of annoying, but it is a more traditional way of TV being released, of course. And I don't know, I guess there's some traditionalist in charge. I imagine these TV series have been finished at this point. And
right, they're already shooting season 2 for, I think, both.
So that's not the hold-up.
No.
The other possibility is that they're just worried that like 2 weeks after Apple TV is launched, that someone's saying like, I've watched literally everything on Apple TV. There's nothing else to watch. Why am I still paying the money? And so that's the reason that they're dragging out the release schedule. I
think that's definitely a good one. I think the M. Night Shyamalan show is either about to launch or just did. I don't know anything about it other than M. Night Shyamalan directed it. I can tell you one thing about it. There's a twist towards the end. Oh, really?
That was a joke. Because he always... No, yeah, okay. The way you laughed, I wasn't sure.
No, that was a genuine laugh at your joke.
All right, good. Good.
It could also just be a way to build up excitement between episodes. So, but yeah, it'd be much easier to manage if I could watch all of The Morning Show and then jump to C instead of trying to watch one episode at a time every week.
Yeah, I think I prefer that too.
So
maybe it's a like a health type thing. They don't want people binge watching shows.
Did you see there was a movie Apple's working on called The Banker that I told you about a couple shows ago. Did you see that it got at least temporarily postponed? It's like not premiering at the film festival they're going to premiere it at.
No, I didn't see.
Apparently, because it's based on a true story, the son of the main character I think played by Samuel L. Jackson in the movie, like just recently got some kind of like sexual assault accusation, and Apple decided it might not be the appropriate time to premiere the movie because of that. I don't think all the details have come out yet, but I was really disappointed about that because it looks like a really good movie.
So Apple announced a press event on December the 2nd. Honoring
out of nowhere.
favorite apps and games of 2019. So this is just a press event. It's not a keynote by any means.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say about it, except it's kind of weird. Because there's never really been a December event. Does this even count as an event? I guess it kind of does.
I mean, there's a few things that are kind of weird about it. First of all, I guess that it's happening at all is kind of weird. It's not something they've necessarily done in the past. They're holding it in New York City, and it's going to be at 4 p.m., which is a very odd time for them to be hosting an event. 4 p.m. Eastern is like 1 o'clock Western time, which usually their events are at 10 a.m. So to be holding such a late event is kind of out of character for them. So I don't know exactly what the reasoning behind that timing is. But I really hope they slip in the Apple tags during this event. I just wanted to say, by the way, here you go.
Look, they have already said that new products are not to be expected. So it's just really going to be
these Apple tags to happen.
It's just going to be a promo event for apps and games. That's what I can say.
So, well, we lose a lot of things around this house, and I'm really tempted to pick up like a tile or something to solve this problem.
Just keep holding on. Keep holding on.
I know.
You need to use that UWB chip in your iPhone.
I know. It feels useless right now.
It's literally just a dead weight in your pocket at the moment.
It's only useful if you're airdropping to someone who also has an iPhone 11, and then you could point your phone at them. But
how often does that come in handy to you?
I don't know anyone else with an iPhone 11, so
there you go.
So I don't know when we're expecting that. But speaking of accessories, did you see the iPhone 11 case has a dedicated camera button on it?
Excuse me? Are you talking about the new battery case that was announced?
Yes. It
has a dedicated camera button on it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure this is from Apple?
Yes. So this button both launches the camera app and then takes a photo if you press it.
Wow. Okay.
And that is almost enough in and of itself to make me want to buy this battery case for my phone that has otherwise excellent battery life.
How did I miss this? So you're probably getting, like 3 days battery when you combine the internal battery and the battery case?
Yeah. So there's no need for it, and I don't like cases, but man, having a dedicated camera button sounds really nice.
Is it charging the phone with physical connection or Qi?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure how it charges the phone. I know you can still use Qi charging even with the battery case, though.
It must have a physical connection to the phone, though, then. Because the case would be charging with Qi. It's not going to then be Qi charging the phone in turn.
Yeah, it looks like it does have a physical connection.
And where is the camera button?
So the best way to see it, I'm looking at their website, is if you look at the back view, it's on the bottom left side of the case.
So the same size as the lock button, but towards the bottom.
Right.
So if you are holding the phone in landscape as if you were taking a photo, it would be where you would expect the shutter button to be. That's the most logical spot to put it in. Sounds like that's where they put it.
Right. Yeah.
Very
nice. Which is much nicer than using the volume buttons of the shutter, because it's so easy to get your fingers in front of the lens when you have everything on that same side.
Exactly. Yeah. And I always found that pressing the volume buttons induced like camera shake as well. And it didn't show up in the photos normally, but I'm always all about holding the phone as still as possible when taking a photo just to give it the best chance of a sharp photo. And I'm never too thrilled about the volume buttons for that use case.
The most frustrating thing about using the volume buttons for me is that right in the middle of a live photo, you hear a click because you can hear yourself hitting the volume button.
Huh. Okay.
So yeah, this is actually kind of exciting for me. Not enough for me to actually buy a $130 case just for a button, but at least exciting to see what Apple's mindset is on this, and maybe they'd incorporate this into the iPhone in the future. I can't imagine them adding an extra button, but maybe having like a pressure sensitive kind of area on the side of the phone.
Yeah, neat idea.
Yeah.
Well, the design team has seemingly taken a different direction recently. Who knows, maybe we're going to have buttons all over the phone in the coming years.
And 2 headphone jacks.
Why stop there?
That's right.
Give it an SD port, come on. At least on the iPad. Actually, that's something I wanted to mention back on the MacBook 16-inch. They didn't add an SD port. I think if they were ever going to, this was the one. So,
right. And Jonathan Morrison had a video where he sat down and talked to Phil Schiller about the 16-inch MacBook Pro, and he specifically asked him if the SD card port would ever come back, and Phil Schiller seemed very definitively sure they weren't going to bring that back. So, I mean, I don't think he could answer any other way without shooting himself in the foot, but
that's true.
At the same, it doesn't seem like Apple to backtrack in that way.
Also, iOS 13.2.3 has been released. We've gone for quite a while on this show already. I did want to talk about iOS 13, but we don't really have to. It's slowly improving. Week by week. Seemingly every second week we're getting a little point update.
Yeah.
My list of annoyances is shrinking.
Now that they've got the background handling of RAM at least improved, I'm for the most part happy with how iOS 13 is behaving now. So
I got 2 complaints I'd just like to register.
Okay.
The first one is that I'm not sure if you've noticed, but the double tap to smart zoom is just gone from iOS 13. That drives me nuts every single day because that is a very deeply ingrained habit when I'm using Safari. To double tap.
Gone in Safari?
Yes.
Oh, man.
On the iPad. I think it's still there on the iPhone. As a result, I'm assuming, of the new text selection features and whatnot. The double tap to smart zoom on the paragraph, or to fill the width of the screen with the text that you're reading, has been missing since 13.0. And I assumed it was a bug in the betas to start with, but it's still not there.
I wonder if that's the text selection or part of the new desktop Safari doesn't have that.
Oh, yeah, good point. Could be the new desktop Safari. But I mean, I was using that so often, so frequently, every single day. And I just forget that it's not there, and I'm double tapping and it's not zooming. And anyway, I wish that would come back. And the second point is, I talked about this quite a while ago, but on the iPhone SE, on the home screen, right? Like you used to have to swipe notifications to action them, and then I'm not sure if it was late in iOS 12 or 13.0, you could actually like long press to action them.
Okay.
Like it would do the fake haptic touch, 3D touch, whatever you want to call it, even though the SE didn't have 3D touch or haptics. But that's suddenly disappeared. So my wish was answered for a few months, and then suddenly the feature disappeared again. So I'm not sure what that's all about. But I hope that comes back in 13.3.
Okay.
Yeah, just for consistency of features, really. Because, my iPad doesn't have 3D or haptic touch, and I can long press on a notification, so why shouldn't the SE do it as well?
I think maybe the most common frustration I have is in the Mail app. I flag and unflag emails quite a bit. And first of all, you have to hit the reply button to get into the flag options. But then you get there, and there's a dialogue now that has like all the different colors you can flag an email, because now it can be different colored flags. And then, of course, one of those is the no flag option. If you have an email flagged, there's a bar above that says unflag. It looks like a button. And I'd expect to be able to hit the unflag button to unflag an email, but it does nothing. You have to hit the transparent flag to unflag an email.
Okay.
And that is probably my most common frustration, as well as just I don't like everything being hidden in the reply menu.
You can also just swipe the body of the email to the left and you get the flag in there. I haven't actually seen this flagging system you've talked about, because I've only ever flagged and unflagged just by moving the entire email to the left.
Yeah, I guess I mean, you say that, and I was thinking like, oh yeah, I know you can do that, but I don't know why I don't.
Yeah, you don't have all those options, and you only have the single flag.
I think it's because usually I'm determining whether or not an email needs to be flagged by actually being inside the message and reading it. And so I can either go back and then swipe on it, or I can just hit the reply button and choose flag.
No, you can do it in the message as well as in the message list.
Oh, I see. That's something I didn't know.
Yeah, it's slightly ridiculous. And when it first became like this, it was kind of annoying, but I've slowly gotten used to it, and it's just one of the undiscoverable features of mail that that people are finding out. So have you just tried it now?
Just made that much easier for me.
Yeah. Okay, good. There you go. Yeah, just swipe the entire message when you're reading it, and it works just like you're in the message list view.
Well, that's much nicer than jumping into a submenu. So
yeah, it's better than submenu, and I think it's also better than doing it in the message list, because when you're in like conversation view or whatever, and you swipe on a message and flag it, it flags like every single email in the conversation, which is just annoying, because then you have like, I don't know, a ton of flagged emails.
Right. Well, that's much nicer. Thank you.
My pleasure. Do you want to talk quickly about Guillaume, or William, as he's known in English-speaking countries?
Yeah, did you see the update?
No, I haven't seen any updates. Do you want to give me the full story?
Yeah. So from the top, Guy, or William Rambo, who I feel like I'm bragging if I call him friend of the show. He's been on the show at least. Was locked out of his developer account. And he recently put up a blog post about it, saying that he's actually been locked out since August, and has been trying not to make a big public deal about it, and has been working with Apple and kind of been given the runaround for the last few months. They've been seemingly continuously telling him they'll get back to him, and then not doing so, and then he reaches out to him in another couple of weeks, and they say they'll get back to him, and that's been going on long enough that he's finally kind of gotten fed up and said, I'm going to make a public post about this, and hopefully that'll change everyone's tone, and you'll actually help me get this figured out. And as far as I'm aware, as far as he's made public in his post, Apple's never given him a reason why his account was why he was locked out of his account. But it's easy to assume that they did this because he's been using the internal developer betas that he has access to decompile and leak information, which I assume is probably against some kind of agreement that you agreed to when you become a registered developer for Apple. And when I first read this, I assumed that the community was really going to rally around him, because he's such a big name and is like the main person who leaks information to the community. But I was surprised to see in the Reddit comments, a lot of people were saying, good, he's broken the contract and this is what he deserves.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all, that perspective. I mean, I can understand that people are saying I mean, it was likely to happen, but there was a bit of, I don't know, like a vengeful attitude about it from some people, which was just odd.
Right, which is, I mean, especially like in the weeks before a keynote, I'd bet half the posts on the Apple subreddit are quotes of his or quoting stories he's written for 9 to 5 or direct links to his tweets.
Yeah, huge source of news.
So
people are like, he deserves it.
Right.
Why? Why does he deserve it?
I don't know if that was just a vocal minority, but it really took me by surprise to see especially r/Apple community take that stance when he's such a big figure in this community. But as of an hour before we started recording the show, Guy posted an update saying that he's gotten back in. Apple reached out and resolved it for him.
Interesting.
And that's it.
That was it? There's no more information given?
No reason why or what was said, just that they reached out and he has access again.
I wonder if he had to sell out his source or something like that to get back into the program.
Oh man.
Maybe.
I don't think he I don't think he would do that.
But I mean, it was putting his livelihood at risk.
That's true.
It?
He did. Well, he's still, I think, just now in the process of going indie. So to lose access to your developer account, yeah, it's a big deal.
Well, I'm not sure we'll ever find out the full story behind it. Maybe in a decade or two.
Yeah, Guy's kind of known for only saying the bare minimum of what he has to say. So
yeah, I mean, the odds of this being just like an honest misunderstanding are very slim, considering the sorts of news he puts out and the sources he has inside Apple, supposedly or apparently.
Right, and just for how long this has been going on. If this was a fluke, this would have been resolved months ago.
Yeah, exactly. But good to hear that he's back on board with his developer account and can keep working on Chibi Studio and the unofficial WWDC app for the Mac. AirBuddy, he also makes the Mac AirPods control UI thing.
Mm-hmm. It's funny to me how he quoted in his original blog post that, I know Apple says going to the press doesn't help, but then immediately after writing this, it finally resolved this issue.
Apple has to say that, don't they? But in like 99% of cases, when something becomes this public, this big in the public, then normally something, it gets more attention and something will happen, as is the case.
Right. I see you put a picture in the show notes.
Yeah. I was on the local Perth subreddit yesterday and someone said, oh, look, I spotted an Apple Maps car in a nearby suburb. So I just put that picture in there. So yeah, it looks like we're going to have new Street View images or something like that maybe coming to Australian Apple Maps.
My part of the country is the only part that hasn't gotten the updated Apple Maps yet.
Oh, so damn it.
I'm still waiting to try it out.
I mean, we've run pretty long, but also the Motorola Razr foldable has come out since we last spoke. Yeah,
I'm really impressed with their hinge design. That's the most impressive thing to me about the Razr is how the phone's able to fold completely flat on itself without a gap and also without creasing the screen at all. It seems like when you unfold it, it has almost no noticeable crease, which is a big improvement over other foldables right now.
Yeah, when you fold it, it's fully supported underneath by what looks like wheel chucks that kind of move into place and then make a fully flat surface for the screen. A really nice looking hinge.
Yeah, if they only put something better than 2-year-old mid-range specs in it, I'd be really excited about it.
Look, the nostalgia is just overwhelming. You can't complain about the spec, especially when you can go into like nostalgia mode where the bottom part of the screen actually becomes the keyboard and the top is the display. It's amazing.
Did you have a Razr?
I did. Yeah, I did. I love that phone. Incredibly thin.
It was pretty mind-blowing for the time.
Even folded, it was a thin phone. And then when it was unfolded, each side just felt impossibly thin for the time.
And this new Razr is exactly the same thickness.
Is it really?
Yep.
I was wondering about
identical.
that. Wow.
I had the Crazer, which was like the slightly narrower but thicker version.
The ugly brother.
Yeah.
That's
and
how
then I had,
thought of it.
I don't know how this came. This is from Verizon. Some kind of double-sized battery on it. So the battery was physically twice as big, and you could get a special back plate that bulged out around the phone. So you had this like incredible battery life, and that's what I had. So it was never especially thin.
Okay. Well, maybe you need to get yourself the new Razr then.
It's really nice. I'm definitely going to at least play with it when it's out in stores.
Yeah, I'm going to go look at the nearest Vodafone store or whatever and try and when it comes out.
Yeah. So, and then speaking of kind of new tech, did you see the Cybertruck?
Yeah, I assumed it was a joke just based on how hideous it is and how unfinished it looks, but apparently it's real.
Yeah. I managed to completely by fluke watch the live keynote for it, I guess. I just happened to pull up YouTube and it's like, live right now, Tesla announcement. So I happened to jump in right at the start and watch that.
Okay, cool.
My main takeaway is that Elon Musk is a terrible presenter.
Yeah, but he's consistently terrible. So I think my expectations for his presentations are set low at this point, and he just kind of meets them all the time now. But yeah. But he also has a certain charisma about him as well. Man, did you see that the windows were smashed on stage? I saw that, yeah.
Because whatever charisma he had was completely sucked out of him right when that demo failed. And he had to do the rest of the presentation in front of a smashed truck.
Yeah, that was the worst part of it. It wasn't on like a thing they could just turn it around to hide the smashed windows. So like every single press shot is the thing with the smashed windows. Oh, so unfortunate.
Yeah. So, but I feel sorry for whoever was running his slide deck because he would just seemingly jump to whatever topic he wanted to talk about, like not in order of the presentation, and they kept having to skip around to keep up with him.
Yeah. It was like a nightmare in a waking nightmare.
Yeah. So
it does look interesting though. It's a pretty good price seemingly for the car and decent specs as well.
And it's definitely not a final design. There's still a lot of things that can be changed for legal reasons. Like it doesn't have any mirrors right now, or even like windshield wipers. And the car is not set to be produced for another 2 years. So a lot will change between now and then.
I hope so. Hopefully it's completely redesigned.
I mean, the design itself kind of grows on me the more I look at it.
It looks like it's from a dystopian future.
It looks exactly like I expected cars to look by now 20 years ago.
Maybe this is the start of something different.
That's right.
Anyway, I'm James VDM on Reddit and Twitter.
And I'm Jellywoot on Reddit and Twitter.
And we'll post this show in reddit.com/r/the R Apple Show.
Yeah, feel free to leave us feedback over there.